Hey, this is John here. Last week we talked about deep learning. Today we're going to talk about deep observability. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Chaim Mazal. He's a chief security officer at a company called Gigamon. Very easy to remember, Gigamon. And as I teased in the opening, we're going to switch from deep learning to deep observability. And I think most of my listeners kick around half the day talk about zero trust. One of the founding principles of zero trust is just trying to figure out what the heck's on the network, what's coming and going all the time. I thought it'd be good to bring in an expert and talk about some new innovations in that area. But perhaps, Chaim, you could give us maybe a thumbnail sketch of the company, how it got started, and where you folks are at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gigamon is a leader in deep observability. Traditionally, we've helped markets aggregate their on-premise network traffic and be able to use unique data flows to feed various tooling across their environments to have end-to-end visibility across that network level traffic. So a lot of what's taken place over the transformation of Gigamon here over time has taking our core competency and taking that rich telemetry of that network level data, being able to reduce it and condense it, and then let you reconstitute it to use it how every organization feels effective, to be able to expand that into security tooling, visibility tooling, and your cloud deployments to have end-to-end visibility across all of your non-ephemeral data as a singular source of truth, right? So this is validated real data that is unable to be manipulated by potential threat actors.
Well, all my listeners know about NIST. NIST has all kinds of proclamations and rules, and there are smart people who can quote the letter and jot and tittle and all kinds of different details about NIST. But when I look at zero trust, it seems to me they want you to be able to inspect the traffic. And I think this is where the whole topic conversation is. It's like it could be called just network traffic maintenance, or whatever you want to call it. But so I think this is where Gigamon fits in with observing traffic, because 90% of traffic now is encrypted. How do you even inspect something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 93% of all malicious traffic, unfortunately, is encrypted. Double-edged sword. We use encryption to go ahead and validate and verify good traffic, but unfortunately, bad actors also use it to obscure their traffic. And we also know that 35% of breaches go undetected via observability and visibility tools. And then we also know that effectively, by having unencrypted traffic, you can enhance the success of your security tooling, your visibility tooling, and your observability tooling by 5 to 7 times, just by simply being able to go ahead and take that, that raw traffic and feeding it in there, right? There's a difference between using some modern innovations that we have via tooling with AI and algorithms, with guessing and with actually knowing, with having that unadulterated traffic. And that's where Gigamon comes in. Traditionally speaking, log data and other sorts of data can be manipulated and changed by threat actors. And what we're doing is we're taking the raw network telemetry that effectively is that source of truth, and making sure that you can plug it in and have full visibility across your assets.
I'm going to quote an old-fashioned guy and a quote a new guy. The old guy, Willie Sutton, he once said, they asked him, why do you rob the banks? He said, that's where the money's at. Now, there's a new guy in town. His name is Ian Farquhar. And what he says is that you look at traffic because that's where the truth is. So that's where the truth is, huh?
That's exactly right. Listen, if you want to know what's going on across your networks, with east-west lateral movement, if you're trying to be able to identify good versus bad, you have to look at that raw, unadulterated source of truth. And we believe that that's network telemetry. And this feeds directly into the government's, zero trust framework. Historically speaking, from security, we started at the network, we went to the asset, and then when we went to identity and access management, and then collectively we all come together and said, you know what, we need all of it. But we believe that the underlying foundation, again, is that network data that is a source of truth for all subsequent data thereafter.
When I was your age, when I was your age, when I was a young fella, I learned networking by having some personal computers in my basement and connecting the Ethernet together and figuring it all out. I mean, it was pretty easy. I could say 1, 2, 3, 4 computers, and I'd practice all my TCP/IP stuff. A lot of people did that. That's how they took all the simple tests. Well, networks may have changed a little bit over the years. Some people talk about managed assets like servers and laptops. Some people talk about unmanaged assets like security cameras, refrigerators, building management systems, maybe even smartphones and tablets. So when you say network, what do you include in that definition?
So I include all of it because, again, if there is traffic that's associated with a network, it has an IP address, it lives in your physical on-premise data center, it lives in your cloud provider, whether that's AWS, Azure, or GCP, being able to have full line of sight across those data sets or the data sets that you find valuable, I think is the key to winning the game, right? Knowing where your crown jewels are, knowing which data you want to have the most insight to, and then being able to go ahead and come up with a comprehensive plan to view and aggregate all that traffic based on that. One of the cool things that we have going on at Gigamon is precryption. So now we have the ability in real time to allow end users to decrypt data via drag and drop, essentially via our platform. So what that means is no heavy overhead, no having to manage your own PKI, no having to have teams, maintain, deploy, and roll out this across your environments. You can go ahead and you can decrypt traffic in real time in your cloud environment and in your on-premise environment and decide where and when you want to do it, like being able to shine a spotlight into a place that you need some additional insight in real time. And this is allowing us, again, to be able to optimize security tooling, to optimize visibility tooling, as well as being able to help organizations identify anomalous traffic across all their environments.
Speaking of spotlights, this is a spotlight announcement. It was just maybe last month or 2 months ago when your company announced this whole idea of pre-encryption. And, as Ron Burgundy famously said, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, you go from regular observability to right down to the nuts and bolts. So this is really like go outside and you throw, stuff in the air and talk about it. I mean, it's a big deal, isn't it?
No, absolutely. This is a huge deal. So we feel like this is breakthrough technology that can be leveraged by any and all organizations to have real-time line of sight across all their environments and to optimize all their tooling. And, traditionally speaking, it takes a big initiatives to make this happen, especially across disparate environments, right? You might have a cloud provider in Azure, right, that encrypts everything out of the box. The same thing in AWS, same thing in GCP. And then you have your various environments, your on-prem environments, right, where you maybe have selected encryption or you're not doing it in some places. So here it's really the ability to have a comprehensive view, to be able to identify any potential hidden malicious traffic, and to also be able effectively to select your own adventure. You can use it where you want it and not use it where you don't want it, and you can help your organization be successful in real time without having all that crazy heavy overhead with all the implications that are associated.
Chaim, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's how I found your company. I was listening to a couple of podcasts with the guy I mentioned earlier, Ian Farquhar. This guy's really smart. This guy he's been beat up in the trenches. He knows a whole lot. And in the last interview I heard he gave, it was very interesting. He talked about balance. Now, you got to have a balance here between security and visibility, and you have to kind of balance that, which is really a challenge, especially with the amount of information coming in, the amount of encrypted traffic. And so maybe your system can address some of those issues between not slowing the system down yet and decrypting everything and coming up with kind of a balanced approach here. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in places where you need unencrypted traffic, this will actually help optimize your tooling and your network's capabilities, right? Because it's much easier in a lighter workload to be able to have that unencrypted traffic flow through your network. But the idea is to be able to leverage it in places that are most, that'll make your organization most successful, right? Any and everything is probably not the best game plan, but being able to strategically say like, hey, I want to be able to identify any traffic that goes outside of this subnet or this area that's unencrypted, because that would be, counterintuitive to how we've set up our infrastructure. Like that might be a smart move to be able to help your security operations team identify any and all traffic that might be using, a different version of TLS that might be counterintuitive to your organization or things like that. It's definitely not a peanut butter approach, right? So with precryption, you can ultimately be able to utilize and balance based on your company's needs. Another unique use case is saying, hey, that we know that we have this cloud provider, and this cloud provider is where we have our SIM, and this is where we feed our SIM tooling. So we can say that, okay, any data that's going into our SIM, we can go ahead and make rules where we can say that now effectively we have unencrypted traffic, and we can have the full line of sight and view across all those packets to be able to help our security operations team do more intense, more in-depth threat hunting and allow them to be successful with their job, or also to enhance security tooling. So whatever the use case might be for the individual organization, it's essentially plug and play. So you don't have to pick an entire environment. You can pick streams of data and say, okay, from this source to this source, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use prescription. And so the flexibility, the lack of overhead, and the performance enhancements, and the ability to really step up to the line of sight for east-west traffic mobility and pivoting across your environment, we think is going to be a game changer for organizations as a whole.
Up in Chicago, probably a little bit of snow this winter. It's probably best to have maybe a snow shovel, maybe some salt in your garage so you don't get stuck. So prevention can prevent, bad things from happening to people in a snowstorm. And I guess this is the focus here. It looks like pre-encryption, it starts with the same word as prevention. So this is really a preventative way where you don't have to worry about an asset being lost in your system. You can actually stop it before it actually enters the system. So this is almost preventative, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's layers to it. So being able to have that first line of sight and that unadulterated data across your environment, again, is going to definitely help defenders defend better as a preventative measure. But then, we talked about zero trust. We talked about moving from the perimeter to a, comprehensive threat in depth perspective, right? So looking at traffic, once something gets past the perimeter and gets onto your internal network, we believe is key as a whole. If you look at the recent breaches of MGM and Caesars Palace, where the perimeter was breached and they had identity and access management implications, as soon as that threat actor was on an internal network, boom, that's where prescription and that's where Gigamon's core value would take place, right? Being able to monitor and evaluate that lateral movement across the network and being able to go ahead and have a full line of sight into some of the transactions that are taking place across the network environment. And then also, again, with prescription, being able to feed that data into your security toolings for better alerting and better anomalous activity detection.
So were you involved in the MGM? Did you guys catch that?
No. We were not involved in MGM and we were not involved in Caesars. Again, having conversations across the industry as a whole, as far as casinos and stuff like that. But again, this is something that is a definitive game changer across the board and something that we're working with that industry directly with.
Well, let's go from Las Vegas to Washington, D.C. Millions of people work for federal government, all kinds of interesting aspects of prevention. And I think you're about to release a product in a couple months. I think it's called GigaView HCT, specifically for govies. Is that right?
Absolutely, specifically for govies. This is something that is taking all the government requirements into account here, making sure that we look at the form factor, functionality, the use of data, size, and space, and that we are setting up the government to be successful. Again, it meets TSA regulations, easily transportable, fits in racks, and gives a full line of sight into whatever you plug into it. So it's able to leverage all the core Gigamon technologies, as well as prescription, all those other things, and being able to have a form factor that meets and fits with federal and government requirements in multiple agencies across the board.
So it sounds like this is an on-prem solution. Is that right?
Absolutely. This is an on-prem. This is a physical solution that plug and play and wherever you may need. And then it also goes ahead and works in tandem with our cloud-based solution as well and the hybrid multi-cloud as well. So plays nicely with all of our offerings across the board here at Gigamon.
I think for my listeners, that's an important differentiator. It also is available on-prem because there's, of course, agencies that have some restrictions to that. So, So why the emphasis on deep observability? So up until this point, it's just been moderate observability, or on the TLS layer, it doesn't go down thoroughly, or only or traditional observability going to be part of the encryption, or why is this deep?
Yeah, absolutely. So deep observability, I think, is, again, the natural progression of taking things a step further. So when you plug in logging or traditional methods of how people view and look at their environments, right? Whether that's, events, traces, and all of the other aspects that go into it, all of those things can be manipulated. All of those things can be altered, right? So you have threat actors effectively who've come on and figured out how to do log forging, have figured out how to get command and control environments and be able to go ahead and obscure traffic across the board. And so what we say deep observability is taking, again, that defined critical key network telemetry that's unadulterated, cannot be manipulated, and feeding it into all of your systems. And also the part is being able to feed intelligently different systems, different data sets to be able to help your organization be successful in its core mission statement. So what that means is being able to feed the right traffic to the right tools in real time to save you money, to save you cost, and to be able to give you a underlying steel thread of data that you can feel confident on. And having conversations with multiple customers, they're saying like, hey, we have all this great data. We think we're doing the right things with it, but how do we validate it? And so for Gigamon is the validation of the data that you have in hand, and then optimization of that data and feeding it into the right tool sets so you can be successful in your security tooling. And again, really having the full breadth of packet view in a easily digestible form factor. So imagine taking the value of raw packet capture, right? Removing all the cost implications of what that means as far as overhead, and then being able to leverage all of that data as far as full visibility in all of your observability toolings. That's deep observability.
Yeah, I've read maybe the federal listeners don't realize this, but I was doing some research on your company. There's something like 70-80% of the Fortune 100 companies use your network visibility tools. I mean, that's it's a pretty big number, I think.
87 of the Fortune 100, every single branch of the federal government. Again,
wow.
We are, deeply represented in every facet and every major industry that you can think of across the globe.
Well, in Jeopardy, I missed that question. 87%. I mean, that's every single agency. That's pretty. And I don't think our listeners even know that. They should know to go to Gigamon, Gigamon, and take a look at these funny characters you got screening across the screen here, because it's just kind of an entertaining little site. I used to see so many serious sites about this, but this really kind of Gigamon prescription technology is the new decryption. So it's a great site to learn about that. So what you do is you're handling the TLS layer, and that's really what you're playing around with. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's agnostic, so it works with all versions of TLS, from TLS 1.2, TLS 1.3. And you can go ahead and effectively, by clicking a button, decide where and how you want to ingest or transform your data in real time. So for us, again, the flexibility for our customers to use that powerful capability wherever they want, we believe is something that hasn't been done in the industry, and it's something that's a game changer.
A lot of people ask me who listens to the show, and believe it's about 2/3 companies and 1/3 govies. And so my question to you is, let's say there's a company out there now, consultancy, or maybe a company that handles, I don't know, identity management. So who would be a good partner with you? What kind of company would come alongside you, maybe work on a proposal with you, maybe balance some of the activities you have? What kind of company do you think would work with you folks?
Yeah, so we think as far as partnership, as far as like...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of great companies. So we do very, very well. Companies like ExtraHop for NDR solutions, right? And we're also looking at observability tooling. You can think of things like Datadog, SIMS. You can think Splunk. Wherever we're able to go ahead and effectively be able to enrich and help large data sets to make informed decisions, I think like that's an incredible ecosystem partner for us as well. Like Dynatrace, right? Again, Fed very heavily used and very heavily used in the Fortune 100. Like being able to plug and play our systems and tools to enhance data sets that are being used by large network operations teams and large security operations teams, I think is really where we shine.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, because I know Willie over Dynatrace and a few other folks. He's a great guy. 5 years down the road. So where do you see yourself?
Wow, 5 years down the road. 5 years down the road, I think, to be honest, we're a key pillar in every single enterprise zero trust initiative, as far as visibility, as far as being able to verify and maintain core data transactions across any and all environments. I think that's really where we shine. And I think that as the industry, meaning our industry and the federal government, continues to move in that direction, we keep increasing our core competencies, and we keep continuously being leveraged by all the major, again, agencies as well as the Fortune 500 to be able to achieve those goals. So I think that's where we stand. We are a key pillar in zero trust to be able to validate and verify all transactions across your space.
Right. The principles are easy for zero trust. You must encrypt, but you also must inspect. And it
Absolutely.
seems that's the tool they're bringing. They give, hey, give him Chaim a call, figure out what's going on with this, because it's a two-part process, and I guess trust but verify. You're the verify part, huh?
Absolutely, we are the verify, and we're also the trust part, right? So the interesting part is wherever you put Gigamon to be able to be that transactional representative, you can trust that those data sets, again, are going from one place to another place in the way that you are going ahead and designating, whether that's encrypted, whether that's unencrypted, into that end data source. But we're a trust and verify.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, great. This has been a great interview. I think listeners will find out that you're behind the scenes in many organizations and partnering with many companies too. So it's good to know about this new product just released in September, and it's called Precryption. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. Our guest today was Chaim Mazal, Chief Security Officer at Gigamon.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.